Tonight, justice has been done. The mother of Caroline Glachens says she will always feel the void left by her daughter's death nearly 3 decades ago, as one of her killers was jailed for at least 17 years.
It's no closure, it's justice. You don't get closure. Closure's a thing that is a void that will never be filled, so you don't get closure.
Also making the headlines, the family of an 8-year-old girl struggling with mental health issues says she's been waiting more than 3 years for an assessment and her violent behaviour is getting worse.
In sport, the countdown is on. Celtic and Rangers set up the first Old Firm Scottish Cup final in 22 years.
And we meet the Scot who made history at the London Marathon yesterday by becoming the first woman to cross the finish line with the aid of a frame. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. The mother of a schoolgirl murdered in 1996 says justice has been done, but she will always feel the void left by her daughter's death. Caroline Glachens' mum was speaking outside court after one of the teenager's killers was jailed for at least 17 years.
Donna Marie Brand is the third person to be sentenced for her part in what the judge described as a plan to inflict murderous violence. Brand, acting with others, then left Caroline to drown in the River Leven in West Dunbartonshire. Our chief reporter, Sharon Frew, was in court.
She will be forever 14 to her parents. Caroline Glachens' mother and father hugged outside court at the conclusion of these lengthy legal proceedings. Donna Marie Brand was too ill to be sentenced earlier this year alongside Robbie O'Brien and Andrew Kelly. The trio were convicted after a cold case review of the 1996 murder. Brand learned today it will be 17 years before she is eligible for parole.
It's like a weight lifted off my shoulders, and as I said before, it's no closure, it's justice. You don't get closure. Closure's a thing that is a void that will never be filled, so you don't get closure.
The judge reflected on this loss as he passed sentence.
Caroline was a popular teenager. Indeed, you say she was a friend of yours. As her mother, Margaret McKeach, puts it in her victim statement, she was a lover of life. Due in part to you, Caroline has been deprived of the opportunity of living that life.
The murder trial heard Donna Marie Brand was jealous of Caroline and had threatened to beat her up if she spent time with Robbie O'Brien. The 14-year-old was said to have been infatuated with her new boyfriend, and she left her home in Bonhill before midnight to meet him at a bridge on the River Leven. But O'Brien wasn't alone. Brand was with him. Andrew Kelly had also brought along 2 young children that he was supposed to have been babysitting that night. Soon after she arrived, Caroline was subjected to a brutal and violent attack. The teenagers then left her to drown in the river. Donna Marie Brand was 17 at the time of Caroline's death. The judge told the now 44-year-old that while he accepted she had played a lesser role that night, she was still party to a plan of murderous violence.
You share equal responsibility for having left Caroline lying face down in the river when she was still alive. To an extent, your culpability is mitigated by your age at the time, although the harm done is not.
But she certainly was an instigator in the whole thing anyway. 17, I know 17, Caroline was 14. So, and she went mope-handed. You know, she couldn't even face Caroline on her own, seeing as she was wanting to batter her, so at age, it says nothing to me. Caroline was 14.
Robbie O'Brien will be behind bars for at least 22 years. Andrew Kelly was jailed for at least 18. Both men plan to appeal. Caroline's parents said they too are serving a sentence, only theirs doesn't come to an end and they don't get parole. Sharon Frew, STV News at the High Court in Glasgow.
The family of an 8-year-old girl struggling with mental health issues say her often violent behaviour has been exacerbated by waiting more than 3 years for an assessment through CAMHS, an NHS service that helps children and young people with emotional, behavioural or mental health difficulties.
Although waiting times for the service have slightly improved recently, opposition MSPs say it's not good enough and young people are being betrayed. Here's our political reporter, Laura Alderman.
I'm at the school.
8-year-old Delilah and her gran Shona have a close and loving relationship. But Delilah's behaviour often escalates into violent outbursts, which can be difficult to control, affecting her friendships and education. She's currently still waiting for a mental health assessment through CAMHS, 3 years after being referred.
There's nobody that can help. There's nobody to support us. It'll help us understand a lot more about why it's happening, for starters. It allows us, if she requires medication, it'll give her the medication that she needs to be able to get her education back on track, be able to have the coping skills to sit in a classroom. Just want her to have a normal life.
Delilah is currently in school in Coatbridge for just a couple of hours a day after an incident last month.
This particular day she just wasn't coping very well and she attacked her teacher. She stabbed her with a pencil and she was attacking her, so she had bruising all up her arms. Just all down to her not being able to cope with the environment that she's in. And the school are doing everything they can, but if she's attacking teachers, you know, they've got no option but to exclude her. But for us as a family, like, just having our 8-year-old excluded from school for something that she's actually got no control over, it's heartbreaking.
The latest data shows almost 84% of patients were seen by CAMHS within 18 weeks of referral, an improvement on the year before, but still falls below the Scottish Government's target of 90%.
The demand and capacity, there is a huge mismatch, and there's a growing need, and it's very hard to know what to anticipate. But what we now learn from pandemic is that the demand has become complex, very acute, and that has an impact on how specialist service cope with it.
The Scottish Government insists progress is being made.
I want to see the quality improve and I want to see the outputs improve. So it's not just about increasing spending. I want to make sure that when children need support, they can access that support. And there's a lot of work, as I say, going on right across the whole system to try to improve that.
We know that that target to see 90% of young people within 18 weeks has never been met. And actually, far from making progress, the SNP are undermining our advance towards treating these young people by cutting the CAMHS budget by £30 million and actually removing access to talking therapists. So this is a betrayal.
NHS Lanarkshire says providing mental health support to children and young people is a priority, but the pandemic has played a major role in increasing waiting times, something it's trying to reduce. Meanwhile, children like Delilah remain in limbo, stuck waiting for help. Laura Alderman, STV News, Carluke.
Members of the Scottish Greens are to vote on whether to stay in the Scottish Government or walk away from the Bute House Agreement. The party will hold an emergency general meeting next month.
Some members feel that scrapping the 2030 climate target crosses a red line in the deal. Some senior SNP figures want to scrap the agreement too. Well, our political editor Colin Mackay has been speaking to them. So Colin, how's this going to go?
Well, I asked Patrick Harvey that exact question. Even he's not sure. What he does say, though, is that this is the most important decision in the Scottish Green Party's history. But the Green Party is not like some other parties. They don't just do exactly what the leadership says. I think sometimes it's probably a bit like herding cats. They have currently about 7,500 members. Just over 100 of them have called for this emergency general meeting. And some of them are angry at the scrapping of the climate target. Others are angry that prescriptions for puberty blockers have been paused, and many more still are angry that the SNP froze the council tax. And if you put all that together, some of them think that's enough to quit the Scottish Government.
If the vote was tomorrow, for me, I would be voting for us to take that step back out of government. I do think that too many of our principles, too many of those red lines have been crossed. But also, I think the ball is now in the Scottish Government's court to make sure that we know what, whether it's worth our while or not. I think to make it really clear to us what the benefits of being in government are. If they can show that to us, if they can demonstrate that to us, then I think that would be great. But right now, it's not looking good.
Greens have been arguing for transformational change on transport, on land use, on buildings and more, and we've been blocked by other parties. We're taking that action now, we're accelerating it. Now is time to double down on those ambitions, not walk away from them.
So this EGM will take place at the end of May. It'll likely be online to allow everyone in the party to take part and to vote, and it will crucially be a binding vote. So on balance, I think the deal between the Greens and the SNP will probably survive all of this, but it's nowhere near guaranteed.
OK, Colin, thanks very much for that. Wet wipes containing plastic are to be banned from sale across the UK. In a public consultation, more than 90% of people backed the plans to make them illegal.
The regulations will be introduced by the end of this year, with enforcement beginning 18 months later. A senior reporter, Gordon Cree, has been following the story. So, Gordon, what's led to this?
Well, John, these wet wipes have become a common sight in recent years. They're used for all sorts of things, from babies to taking makeup off to even disinfecting your kitchen surfaces. Problem is, most of them down the years have contained plastic. People flush them down the toilet, they get in the sewage system, they cause blockages, they cause flooding. They end up being washed up on beaches where they're harmful to animals and marine wildlife. In one beach clean-up, 4,500 of them were picked up within 40 minutes. Well, now it's been decided enough is enough. And earlier, along the coast at Dunbar, we caught up with some people at a beach clean today for their reaction.
I think it's a great idea to ban them. Like today, with the bags full of a lot of baby wipes, you know, and they're embedded in the sand as well. So yeah, huge issue.
Every time I come to this beach, we see baby wipes. They're always lying on the beach. They're always washed up from the sea. So it is really a big problem in this area. I feel like it's coming through the sewage system, probably. They're not breaking down quickly. There's something that's hanging around for a long time, and they're in quite a decayed state.
We've had thousands and thousands of people at beaches like this and right around the UK giving up their weekends to go out and record and count the scale of the problem. And it just shows the power of data, the power of citizen science to help affect sensible policy change that everybody supports and can benefit wildlife and people.
So, Gordon, what happens next?
Well, many retailers have already stopped selling wipes with plastic in them. The regulations will come in later this year, but there will be a transition period of around 18 months. Problem is, there are so many of these in our waters, it'll be years before all of them have finally gone. John.
Gordon at Portobello, thank you.
To other stories now, and Scotland has an alcohol emergency on its hands as the number of alcohol-related deaths in the country hits a record high. That warning comes from Alcohol Focus Scotland. Data from the Office of National Statistics shows 1,276 people died directly from alcohol in 2022. That is 25% higher than pre-pandemic figures.
The increase in deaths that we've seen in Scotland is truly shocking, of 25% over the last 3 years. Alcohol deaths in England have been even higher. So we do know that minimum unit price has had a protective effect on Scotland, but regardless of that, we are dealing with an alcohol emergency. We have to do more to prevent this happening in the first place.
130,000 pupils at schools and colleges in Scotland have started sitting their exams. More than 2 million question papers will be handed out over the next 6 weeks across National 5, higher and advanced higher levels. Results are expected in August. How much exercise do you do? Well, a new study suggests as many as 1 in 4 of us in Scotland don't do any at all, with less than half regularly taking part in sport or physical activity. The research, commissioned by a sport think tank, also highlights widening health inequalities, with respondents from poorer backgrounds less likely to participate. Fraser Nichol has more.
They were being put through their paces at this Pilates class in Mulgai this morning, an intense workout that brings physical and mental benefits.
You've got more energy and you enjoy life more, and the social life within the club is excellent as well.
I love it. It's changed my whole body shape, energy levels, everything, and I love all the people I do Pilates with as well. It's a great studio.
you have to do it. And as you get older, you certainly have to do it to keep the bones from squeaking.
Instructor Karen sees for herself the difference her classes make to people's lives.
For us as teachers, the enjoyment is seeing people start to improve in their health and get stronger and being able to move much better. From somebody who's come in the door that can maybe not actually sit up or down, and then before you know it, we've got them dancing.
But a new survey suggests this isn't the picture across the country, like here 15 minutes down the road in Drumchapel. Research commissioned by the Observatory of Sport in Scotland shows a quarter of people may not do any sport or physical activity at all.
Don't do any exercise. If I'm lucky, I'll walk the dog trend to the street or back.
I used to do a wee keep fit class, a wee did circuits, but I work now 2 or 3 jobs, so I don't.
Most exercise I get is your remote.
Not often, but sometimes I go for a walk in the canal.
This research further highlights the health inequalities at play here. Nearly 60% of those surveyed earning 40 grand or more said they regularly take part in sport or physical activity, but take those earning less than £20,000 and that falls to 36%. And there's a warning the current cost of living crisis is making that gap even wider.
To me, we need a slightly flatter structure so that there is at least a minimum opportunity for especially young people and particularly frail older people, that we can really do something and try and treat everybody in as good a way as is possible, rather than cutting the corners, which is the impression you get at the moment.
These findings will only add to worries about the nation's health and the consequent impact on health services. Experts say more must be done to get everyone moving. Fraser Nichol, STV News.
An extinct lizard kept in a jar in Scotland for more than a century is returning to its home in the Caribbean. The Jamaican giant gully wasp is thought to have been collected in the 1850s and became part of the University of Glasgow collections. But now a team from the University of the West Indies is retrieving the lizard in what is said to be the first repatriation of a natural history specimen in the Caribbean.
It's transformational, and it actually is better than having a digital repatriation program, which happens a lot in science, where people photograph their collections. And while that's important to let us know what is in collections, actually acquiring a specimen changes the ball game. It just opens the door for what is possible in repatriation.
An entertaining weekend of sport, wasn't it, Ronnie?
It was indeed, John. Yes, a very good evening. Cyril Dessers says he's aiming for a beautiful ending to Rangers' season after they booked their place in the Scottish Cup final against Celtic. Philippe Clement's men beat Hearts 2-0 at the National Stadium, with the Ibrox boss insisting they'll relish the challenge of a first Old Firm derby in this fixture in 22 years. Meanwhile, Stephen Naismith admits it's frustrating Hearts didn't take their chances at Hampden, but says his team will improve. It was Dessers at the double, setting up a derby showdown. A much-needed win for Philippe Clement's men, with a blockbuster cup final against their bitter rivals now on the horizon.
Obviously we have first some other business to do, some other games to play, but yeah, when you think about it, it will be the last game of the season, Old Firm final. Yeah, it has the potential to be a really beautiful end of the season, obviously.
Rangers went into this semi-final under pressure, having failed to win the previous 2 matches. But Cyril Dessers calmed the nerves early on. Hearts were limited to very few chances, this header by Lawrence Shankland in the second half going close. Dessers, though, would secure the win soon after, with his second of the game. Jack Butlin pulled off an impressive save from Wataru Oda to keep Hearts out. 2-0, the final score.
It's what I expected, it's what I demanded, it's what I wanted, it's what I knew I would get of the team also. I hear now that it's 22 years ago that it was a Scottish Cup final with the Old Firm, so I think it will be a big rush for tickets and for people who want to do a lot to be at that game.
For Hearts, another missed opportunity at the National Stadium, still looking for their first win over Rangers at Hampden Park.
I think from the last semi-final to this one we performed much better today.
We carried more of a threat. We were brave in possession. Just small margins. If we take one of our chances, we have all the momentum and it builds. You could tell in the second half it was going like that a wee bit, but that's the difference between winning and losing.
It's back to Premiership action this weekend. Rangers travelling to St Mirren, with Hearts away to Kilmarnock. Well, as Philippe Clement mentioned, there'll be a huge rush for tickets for the Scottish Cup final, but Brendan Rodgers says his players will block out any talk of a return to Hampden as full focus moves back to their title defence. In a semi-final that had everything, it was Joe Hart who made the headlines as Celtic beat Aberdeen on penalties. Here's Chris Harvey.
From zero to hero, Joe Hart took centre stage in the shootout at the National Stadium, and in the end was the difference maker as Celtic kept their cup defence on track.
That was pretty wild. We just couldn't put the game to bed, which is unfortunate. But I'm a maniac when it comes to penalty. I always feel like I'm going to save every penalty. I feel like I'm going to score every penalty, but I don't, and I didn't. But luckily, like I say, our penalties were top quality, and it allowed me enough time to make the right decision.
It was a match unlike any other. Aberdeen landing the first blow through Bojan Miovski before Nicholas Kuhn and then James Forrest put Celtic ahead. But it was the late show for the Dons, first equalising in the 90th minute through Esther Sokler. Then, in extra time, after Matt O'Reilly had put Celtic back in front, Aberdeen again hit back, this time through Angus MacDonald. Joe Hart stepped up to send Celtic through in the shootout, but missed, before saving Killian Phillips' penalty and clinching the win.
As a group, we always believe. Obviously, like I said before, there's definitely bits we can look at kind of defensively that, to kind of try and obviously concede them goals and win the game in normal time or extra time. But I don't think as a group we ever stop believing.
Semi-finals are about getting to the final, and I'm so pleased for the players, for the supporters that will be back here on the 25th of May with that opportunity to do that. I think now it's just about blocking that out. And now we've got 5 great games to finish now in the league and then look to take the best form we possibly can into that final.
Next up for Celtic is a trip to St Mirren on Sunday as all eyes turn to retaining their Premiership title. Chris Harvey, STV News.
Scotland midfielder Stuart Armstrong is in a race against time to be fit for Euro 2024 after being carried off on a stretcher for Southampton at the weekend. The Championship club confirmed Armstrong is unlikely to play for the Saints again this season due to a muscle injury, but they hope he'll be available for Scotland this summer. Now, you may recall Scotland's deaf football team ran a campaign to try and raise £40,000 to compete in this summer's European Championships. Well, they've hit their target, meaning they are now heading to Turkey. The squad is made up entirely of deaf players who have severe to profound hearing loss. The association has been fundraising and say their dreams have finally come true.
Honestly, our players are they're lost for words, they're overwhelmed. They just can't believe the amount of support, the funding that we've got in from people. Deaf people and their families, ordinary people, loads of people. We can't believe it actually going to Turkey. Our dreams came true, thanks to your viewers.
A fantastic story. Final news is from the Snooker World Championships and Scotland. Stephen Maguire is through to the second round after beating Ali Carter 10-7 and will now face former world champion Shaun Murphy. That's all your sport.
Thanks very much, Ronnie. OK, well, the weather has been lovely and mild today. Here's the forecast now from Sean.
A dry start to the day will become increasingly splashy. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. I'm going to start off by showing you this unseasonably cold pool of air across Scandinavia, which has been drawn at the moment into Central and Eastern Europe, and a little bit worrying because it could be quite damaging for crops in parts of Europe. Some cold nights, certainly for the time of year. Here we're right on the edge of that chillier air. You won't notice it too much by day. Of course, in the sun it's very strong now, so it feels quite pleasant in the sunshine, despite the fact the temperatures could be a lot higher at this time of year. This is Glasgow, 10, 11 degrees Celsius through much of the week, but look at those overnight values. values. We're down to about 3 to 5 degrees, so some chilly nights, and that is right in the city centre. So if you're in the likes of Motherwell, Paisley, of course if you're towards Oban, parts of Lanark and also inland Ayrshire, it will be even chillier with a wee touch of frost. So some cold nights ahead of us, but not too bad in the sunshine by day. Temperature-wise tonight, we're down to about 1 or 2 degrees Celsius, parts of Lanarkshire, Stirlingshire and also the Highlands. And have a look at this map for tomorrow. Hopefully you've got the day off and you can enjoy it, because it is going to be a lovely day. Lots of blue skies, light winds as well, and those temperatures not too far off where they've been earlier on this afternoon. Yes, at this time of year we could be into low 20s, but we'll take 14, 15 just now because it still doesn't feel too bad in those sunny spells. So another pleasant day to come with sunshine tomorrow. We'll see a bit more cloud around on Wednesday, especially towards the likes of Falkirk and West Lothian. A few drizzly showers there, best in the west.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, a Scottish woman living with cerebral palsy made history at the London Marathon yesterday by becoming the first woman to cross the finish line with the aid of a frame.
Inspirational Dr. Julie McElroy from Glasgow says her achievement feels surreal and hopes it helps put frame running on the map. Brandon Cook reports.
This was the moment months of training paid off for Julie McElroy, the first woman to cross the London Marathon finishing line with the aid of a frame.
I feel like a surreal experience. It's been like a dream, and I've been training for 5 months since last November out in the track. The crowd were amazing, although it was very crowded for me to navigate the same. In the end, at my medal, here I've made history. Julie, you're an absolute star!
Julie was supported throughout the race by fellow runner Jill Menzies. Her primary jobs make sure Julie has enough room and try to keep up.
All I could hear for 6 hours was Julie, Julie, go Julie. So that was delightful because they were just upholding her, and she's quite a sight to behold when she gets going. She can pick up quite a speed.
Julie was running for the Richard Whitehouse Foundation, a charity which supports disabled athletes. She raised over £1,500 and hopes her efforts inspire others living with similar conditions to try the sport she loves so much. Brandon Cook, STV News.
Oh, that's an incredible achievement. Well done to her.
It was indeed. I'll be back with Scotland tonight at 10:40. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Good night.